What's up, members of the Storm? And either today or yesterday, we hit 2,000 followers on my YouTube. So as on my little thank you, each time I reach a little milestone, I'm going to release a Q&A. Without further ado, let's get into it. Dark Lantern 99 asks, when are we going to do a Twitch stream together? No, listen, I'm not trying to brush you off, Dark Lantern. I promise, okay? This is my laptop. I'm sharing my laptop with my sister, but it doesn't work good that much. Within my next 2 to 3 paychecks, I'm gonna have enough money to buy a PC. And after I get a camera, don't worry, we can do Twitch streams. Speaking of Twitch streams, I think once I get my PC, I'm gonna try to stream at least once every weekend, just playing different games. But just to make it interesting, it may not be even the most popular games. It'll just be little strange indie games. Because one of my favorite MMO RPG of all time currently is Champions Online. Don't worry, I'll talk about that later. The Protagonist 20 asked, any advice for making content? The first thing you need to do is find out what kind of content creator you want to be. Do you want to do commentary on societal stuff? Do you just want to be a content creator who talks about comic books, manga, and video games? One or multiple or all of those. After you find out what kind of content creator you want to be, find other people who do the things that you want to do and kind of study what they do. What do they talk about? What brings in the most views? From there, try to adapt whatever you see and implement your own style to it. For example, my page started out being an edit page. I just did edits of all kinds of stuff. And another thing is make sure to be consistent. Try your best to not skip a single day. And you don't have to put out a bunch of content. Just as simple as 1 to 3 reels a day. Just do that every day and you'll gradually accumulate followers. A strategy I also do is from time to time do something that's bold. Not just some clickbaity rage bait that you can't back up. No, find something that you can back up, but will get people just what did he say? That is how I got a lot of my followers, actually. Case in point, when I made my first anime hot take video was hey, anime power systems are inferior to comic book power systems. I knew that was gonna make a lot of people mad and a lot of people happy, but I could back that up. A fellow content creator called King Lion actually went onto a podcast and broke down why comic book power systems are better. So using bits and pieces of his argument and my own ideas, I came up with a solid argument. And surely enough, I got a bunch of followers from that. But the key is, make sure you can back it up soundly. Leave as little room as possible for it to be absolutely obliterated. Because if it is absolutely obliterated, you'll probably just lose followers. Matthew UFO Point V2 asks, favorite comic and manga artist? Ooh, now that's a good question. The Gore God Butcher arc is by far my favorite comic book of all time right now. This can change, but as of right now, my favorite comic book is Thor the God Butcher. It's not my favorite piece of fiction in general, but this is my favorite comic book. As for favorite manga artist, that is harder. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. I don't read that much manga. The only mangas I read are stuff from American manga, stuff like Saturday AM and such. But despite that, I do have a favorite manga artist. Even though I don't read his manga and I don't really like the story, I will give you my favorite manga artist. Even though I don't read One Punch Man, this is by far my favorite manga artist. I already like his combat scenes are amazing, his character designs are amazing, and it'll be even cooler to see an entire manga that is colored. Sorry for my little rambling there. Next question. This commenter asks, can you name some of your favorite comic book writers, artists, or creators? I'll give you all 3. While I have several comic artists I love, Joe Mad X is my favorite. A common theme you'll see between a lot of my comic artists is that they're able to perfectly mix the aspects of comic books and manga. It would be a dream come true to work on a comic book and he be the artist for it. That's actually one of my goals. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how to pronounce his name either, but his art is amazing as well. His comic art is amazing as well, and it mixes, again, like comic and manga art styles but it's in a unique way where it's like, it seems almost like it's an animated project. Another favorite of mine is Clayton Crane. Legit, there's nothing else like his art in fiction. It's so detailed and it's dark and it feels gritty. His oh my goodness, it's just amazing. I don't know how else to describe it. Another favorite of mine is Senor Ramos. Senor Ramos's art style is legendary within the comic book space. But a comic artist list would not be complete without the one, the only, Alex the Goat Ross. When it comes to Alex Ross's art is like the berserk art of the comic book community. He perfectly captures the golden age of comics, but it makes you feel like you're there. You can smell the hairspray. You can feel like you're there, but it's not that time period. It's honestly amazing. On to comic book authors. I'm still on my comic book journey, so I don't really have a laundry list of names. I only have like a few that I know of off the top of my head, but I'll give you to them anyways. So far, Donny Cates has quickly become one of my favorites. His run on Thanos and Ghost Rider, absolutely peak. I love it. Another favorite of mine is Scott Snyder. Technically speaking, the first book I read by him is We Have Demons, which is a sci-fi story basically talking about metals from space that mutated people into monsters that we've called demons and such. But I've heard his other runs are amazing. For example, I heard that his Court of Owls run was amazing and a really good Batman story. I haven't read Court of Owls, I've only watched the animated movie of it, but I'm definitely gonna pick it up. Another favorite of mine is obviously Todd McFarlane. If y'all have been following my page for a long time, y'all know that I love Spawn. And I love the ideas that is in this man's head. Like, y'all didn't know, the whole concept of Spider-Man swinging around in basically inhumane body gestures and such, he's the man who came up with that. So the modern day Spider-Man swinging wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for this man. Along with that, he also created Venom, like the symbiotic suit, so without Todd McFarlane, we wouldn't have Venom. And his ideas with Spawn and how his powers work and how he handles his powers in general are absolutely, they're really, really cool. For the next pick, y'all gonna have to hear me out. Hey. Look at me, let me explain, okay? I know. Like Scott Snyder, I haven't read a lot of his mainstream stuff. Matter of fact, I haven't read any of his mainstream stuff. It's only like hearsay and like the media outlets that are affected by his runs. The first actual comic book I read by Frank Miller is Ancient Enemies. And let me tell you, I love this book. Man, I don't know what to tell you about like why I like it so much. I just really do. So I haven't read everything that Frank Miller has done. I do know he does have a controversial past though. But the reason why I put him in a list of writers that I like is because he's done stuff like Sin City, and he's like really influential when it comes to the Daredevil writing style. Like the modern day Daredevil wouldn't be who he is without Frank Miller. And I believe the Daredevil TV show, a lot of his story from the show comes from Frank Miller's run. And if that's correct, then yeah, because that TV show was amazing. So if his runs directly influenced the Daredevil TV show, then that's another reason why I like him so much. Like I said, I know he's controversial. He's done some controversial stuff in the past, but just bear with me, please. And I will say the stuff that he's done in the past that is controversial he hasn't dragged that up to his recent stuff. Because in Ancient Enemies, the female characters are interesting without being strange. You know what I mean. And the commenter said creators at the end of his question, so I'm guessing he means like comic content creators. So I'll give you a list of comic book content creators I like as well. And I could say my comic book journey officially started once I found Variant Comic. Because decades of things that I didn't know and stuff and such, they helped me catch up on in the matter of an afternoon. So I definitely love that. I definitely love this YouTube channel. It got me through middle school and high school. After following them for some time, I also found out about Top 10 Nerd, and they gave me like a bunch of lists of different things and such, and I found out some of my favorite characters through their list. And this gorgeous woman kept me at Top 10 Nerd for a very long time. Another comic book content creator that I followed for a long time growing up, like through high school and middle school, was Dope Spills, because he went through issues and stuff and explained storylines and broke things down, which helped me understand certain things and such. And honestly, it was really good. He definitely helped me get into comic books as well. Blurred Without Fear is also another really good content creator I enjoy watching, because he breaks down stuff as well, and he also helped me get into Milestone. Another content creator I like is King and Queen Lion. Without them, I would have never pursued my passion of creating comic books. Another content creator I really like is Comic Drake. I really enjoy his videos because sometimes they're like just straight up random. It could be basic stuff such as, oh, who is Taskmaster? Then he will have a separate video explaining how the MCU ruined them. And then he breaks down why the MCU one failed and says why the comic book version should have been used. And then he have completely random stuff just like, oh yeah, talks about Iron Man merch. And this list would not be complete if I did not mention the comic story. May he rest in peace, and man, all I have to say is I wouldn't have been able to get into comic books if it wasn't for him. His video on the Immortal Hulk was absolutely beautiful. As a matter of fact, the Immortal Hulk is one of my favorite runs because of him. He made you feel the emotion, he made you feel the terror. Mullet Man Comics is also a really cool guy as well. He basically breaks down comic book characters and comic book storylines as well, what they mean and how good they are and such. He does a really good job of doing so. And I gotta mention my sister Casualty Comics, because in terms of storytelling and how characters influence in certain narratives, etc., I've gotten the way I handle things from her actually. The Russian Comic Geek is a motion comic channel, and his movies are amazing. Another content creator I like is this guy. I don't really know how to pronounce his name, but you know how weebs have their own comic and their whole manga edits and manga animations? Yeah, so he does that, but with comic books. And boy, they are heat. And the fact that he uses hip hop in these edits are awesome as well. It's also usually like trap metal stuff too, which it goes great. Just go to this man and watch his edits. You won't be disappointed. Back to the commenter. I'm gonna be completely honest. I haven't read enough of the comic books to know like if the cosmology is badly designed, especially when it comes to DC. I haven't read enough of their space stories and their stories that talk about the cosmology overall. I haven't read enough to talk about that. I've heard bits and pieces here and there, like, okay, the New Gods exist outside of the Marvel multiverse, so why did Crisis on Infinite Earths affect them? And like with Marvel, the only thing I get confused about is like, okay, so what is basically the skeleton of the Marvel multiverse? Sometimes I've heard like it's the Web of Destiny. Other times it's Yggdrasil. But I haven't read enough to like soundly say any of that. So maybe if you guys like give me like a reading list or so, that will give me a good idea of like the Marvel and DC cosmology. I can go over it and from there like tell you my thoughts on it. But from what I've seen, Marvel is I don't know much about DC's cosmology though. So yeah, the only thing I know is like the map of it. The commenter also asked, what's your opinion on floating timelines and how would you fix them? At first, I had no idea what a floating timeline was. But after looking it up, basically what floating timeline mean is that it's basically how Spider-Man started in the 60s, yet and still as the years go on, he didn't age real time and the times didn't like update in real time. And I'm gonna be honest, floating timelines is like it's I feel like it's on a case-to-case basis, because depending on what story what's being written and what story it is, floating timelines can actually work as a kind of a time capsule. Because here's what I mean by that. Because a story from the 60s or 70s may carry a different message from a story from the 80s or 90s. So it kind of gives us what the different ideals of each time period were, or what messages they're going to talk about. Because back then, like, the story of Spider-Man will be drastically different from what it is now. For example, if we were to look at MJ from back then versus MJ now, a lot of people liked MJ from back then. Because back then, she wanted to be a supportive partner to Peter. She wasn't always thinking about her and what she... I mean, not in the sense of like she shouldn't think about what she wants, but in the sense of like nowadays she thinks about what she wants to a detriment. She's selfish. But at the same time, I don't know completely how MJ acted back then. So while she may have been like a more likable love interest, like this was back like in the 70s or 80s or whatever, so it's like, who was there like a trade-off? It was like, oh no, yeah, she's likable, she's this, she's that, but she's also freaky. Like, that's a good 50 to 60% of her character. And I don't really like female characters like that. But still, it shows kind of a time capsule and a transition between that and the ideals of the society. Because, for lack of a better phrase, MJ is kind of acting like how a lot of chicks are acting like nowadays. Putting themselves first at the detriment of the relationship, not being rational and stuff like that. You've seen the video. The whole 6'4", 6 figures, ripped, this, that, and the other, but doesn't accept me for me, then step off. And there's other stuff like how, like 2099 Spider-Man. You see, back then, that was kind of like that was like the 80s and the 90s was like the birthplace of cyberpunk. And cyberpunk is basically a more negative outlook on the future. This is when people started to see like, oh, corporations getting involved in space that they shouldn't be, and how that can negatively impact society and such. So with floating timeline stuff like that, we'll be able to see like, okay, when did we start noticing these trends in society, and when did society start talking about it more? With that being said, I feel like I said, it just depends solely up to what the story is. And well, that's gonna do it for this Q&A, and I thank you guys for tuning in. And also, my Cash App is open for any sponsored video. Any amount is welcome, as little as $1. You just, and whatever you can give, I will gladly accept. Other than that, I hope you have a good day.